Bill Maher is no stranger to taking on the woke crowd, but his recent takedown of Whoopi Goldberg on The View was a spectacle that stands out. It's not often we see someone like Maher who doesn't hold back when challenging the prevailing narratives of mainstream media and woke culture. His sharp critique of Goldberg, in particular, points to a broader issue at play. How far are we willing to go in pushing ideologies, and at what cost to reasoned debate? Whoopi Goldberg, long a fixture on The View, has not been shy about her opinions, often pushing progressive stances that many would classify as overly idealistic or disconnected from the average American's day-to-day concerns. In recent years, her commentary has often veered into territory that Maher and others see as self-righteous, even hypocritical. So when Goldberg stepped into the ring, ready to take on Maher, it was almost as though she had given him an open invitation to launch an all-out critique. And that's exactly what happened. What Maher was really calling attention to wasn't just Goldberg's arguments, but also what he perceives as the larger issues with today's political discourse, particularly among the left. In essence, Maher argues that the woke mindset has become so entrenched that it's not about reason anymore. It's about tribal loyalty. Once you're in a certain group, you're expected to defend all of its views, even when they're completely illogical or contrary to the truth. Take Goldberg's defense of President Biden's pardoning of his son, Hunter Biden, for instance. Maher took issue with this in a way that not only critiqued the president's actions, but also the double standard that often exists in the media and the woke circles. Biden had built much of his campaign around the idea that no one, not even the president, is above the law. Yet, here was a situation where his own son was involved in a scandal, and suddenly, accountability didn't seem to matter as much. Goldberg's attempt to justify this move by suggesting that Biden was simply tired of watching others get away with things only made her argument seem more ridiculous. There was an obvious tension between the ideals she espoused and the actions of the very people she was defending. It's moments like these that Maher seems to thrive in. He doesn't just criticize for the sake of criticism. Instead, he presents a coherent argument, using logic and common sense to dismantle the idea that certain people can get away with hypocrisy because of their position in society or the party they belong to. In a sense, Maher is challenging his viewers to look beyond the surface and recognize the contradictions in the narrative that's being sold to them by the media, the government, and even celebrities like Whoopi Goldberg. Goldberg's response, much to Maher's delight, was exactly what he expected. A barrage of emotional pleas and a complete disregard for logical consistency. She tried to paint Maher's perspective as a one-sided attack, deflecting the real issue at hand. But by doing so, he exposed the kind of thinking that's become all too common in today's political environment. It's not about addressing the real issues, it's about creating an echo chamber where dissenting opinions are quickly dismissed or ridiculed. For Maher, this is one of the biggest problems with the left's current trajectory. This dynamic, Maher argues, is part of a broader issue in American politics and culture. The so-called woke mob has often been quick to shame those who don't align with their views, but when it's one of their own caught in a scandal, suddenly the outrage fizzles out. The problem isn't just with the arguments, it's with the selective outrage that's been manufactured to push a political agenda. Take Hunter Biden's scandal, for example. No one can deny the seriousness of the allegations against him. Yet, instead of demanding accountability, the woke media and their allies circled the wagons to protect the Biden family, even going so far as to dismiss credible reports as Russian disinformation during the 2020 election. If the shoe were on the other foot, Maher argues, the left would be calling for heads to roll. But because of political affiliation, justice becomes a secondary concern. This kind of hypocrisy is a major sticking point for Maher. The woke mob, according to him, is all too eager to preach accountability and moral superiority until it's inconvenient for their side. Once demanded accountability from the Trump administration, now seem to turn a blind eye when it's their own party or their own people who are caught red-handed. It's this inconsistency that has created a chasm in American politics, a divide that Maher believes is widening by the day. The left, he argues, has become a fractured shell of what it used to represent. Instead of standing for fairness, equality, and justice, it now seems more concerned with maintaining ideological purity and silencing anyone who challenges their worldview. And it's not just about politics. Maher takes aim at the culture that's grown up around this woke ideology, particularly in the media. He criticizes the mainstream media for its role in downplaying scandals like the Hunter Biden story, noting that key outlets went out of their way to protect the Biden family, all while pushing narratives designed to undermine the right. The media's handling of the situation, labeling credible stories as misinformation and censoring dissenting voices, exposed the deep bias that runs through today's news cycle. This isn't about objective truth. It's about preserving a narrative that favors one side of the political spectrum. What Maher is really asking is whether or not we're willing to accept this kind of double standard. Should we allow the powerful to get away with their misdeeds simply because they align with our own political views? The answer, Maher argues, is no. Accountability must be universal, not selective. The left's willingness to overlook the wrongdoing of their own people is a dangerous precedent, one that could have far-reaching consequences for the future of American democracy. At the heart of Maher's critique is a call for common sense. He doesn't just want to point out the flaws in the left's arguments. He wants to remind people that political discourse should be based on facts and logic, not feelings and ideological loyalty. In today's world, it's easy to get swept up in the fervor of partisanship, but Maher urges his viewers to step back and question the narratives being fed to them. He challenges them to think critically about the positions they take and the people they support. This is especially important as we look toward the future. If the left hopes to regain its footing and connect with voters in the coming years, it must stop alienating Middle America by embracing every fringe idea that comes its way. The more the left embraces extreme positions, the more they risk losing touch with the very voters they need to win elections. Maher's words are a wake-up call for anyone still clinging to the illusion that the left's progressive agenda is universally appealing. The reality is much more complicated, and if the left doesn't adapt, it could very well find itself in the political wilderness for years to come. As Maher wraps up his commentary, he doesn't sugarcoat his message. He tells his viewers that, in the world of politics and media, there are no grand forces of karma at play. Life is random, and people often get what they deserve, but the political class isn't exempt from that rule. It's a stark reminder that accountability isn't some idealistic concept. It's a necessary principle for a functioning society. Whether or not the left is willing to hold itself to that standard will determine its relevance in the years to come.